I have to tell you, I feel like I have called you here because I really resonated so deeply with what you're doing on socials. And it hits right into the heart of my fear for women right now, which is built around this idea that we can slow aging down, that we're against aging. And I saw this incredible quote from Jamie Lee Curtis that said, "I'm not anti-aging, I'm pro-aging." And I thought, pro-aging, this is what we need to talk about. So when I found your Instagram, I was like, here is a beautiful woman who is like, seems like you've been talking about this for a while, has really been helping offer up a different approach to aging. So I'm going to A, start by welcoming you, and B, by just, can we dive in to why anti-aging is not the path we want to take for women?
Yes, thank you, Mindy, for having me. And thank you for having me to speak about what I believe is a very urgent conversation.
Ooh,
and
like
something that is important, as we both have young daughters in their, I believe, 20s.
Yep.
They're watching. And I feel a massive responsibility to create a different narrative. My daughter will choose her own path, but I feel a huge responsibility to give her an alternative storyline to being a woman on the decades-long journey as she watches me.
Yeah. It is interesting, as when you're a mother of a daughter, you become acutely aware she's watching everything. Yes. But then when you launch them, you forget they're still watching. So I think that's so beautiful. And one of the things that disturbs me about the anti-aging movement is that women are toxifying themselves to slow the aging process down. And I want to share a story that I had with a close friend of mine from childhood. And she came, we hadn't seen each other in a couple of years, was both mid-50s. And we started talking about plastic surgery and what she was doing. I haven't done anything. And I asked her, when she told me what she was doing, I said, why? Like, why are you doing that? And she said, well, when you meet people that you haven't seen in a while, or you could connect with people, the first thing they say to you is, you look so good. And I'm like, really? Like, for me, like, that wouldn't be, like, I'd rather them say, I love what you're up to. I get a lot of people say to me, I love your energy. Like, that is a bigger compliment to me than you look so good. And so I started to unpack this with her because it really baffled me. And what I got to is, ultimately, you look so good it equates to you are worthy to the culture. The anti-aging rhetoric, I love the way you said the urgency. Is it because women are scared of being tossed aside by the culture?
I believe so, absolutely, because I believe when we look at the patriarchal system at hand, we have built women's really only sense of power. When you think about the fact that women didn't even have financial agency until 1975, at least here in the US, right? So we're not talking about very long ago. A woman's power was in the shape of her body and the youthfulness of her face, the tightness of her skin, the suppleness of everything, the length of her hair. So if that's the only way that you can have any sense of power in the world, you are going to hold on to that as tightly as possible. And I think it's how women secured their place in society. It's how they maybe got the man, or they could attract the man who was or had more options. And so when we are still operating on an outdated storyline and we haven't revamped the way, and that's what I think this conversation is about.
Yeah.
But when we haven't revamped the way we are able to insert ourselves into power in this society as women, we are still borrowing a really outdated system that keeps women forever chasing. I feel like anytime a woman jumps on that train of Botox, fillers, plastic surgery, I feel like it is a moving train that you almost can never get off. And I find women becoming more and more addicted to it. And so I think it's a very scary, scary situation that we're in.
And the problem, again, like, I'm always respectful of people doing it the way they want to do it. But what I'm concerned about, which probably lines up with you, is just that women are doing it without intention. They're like, oh my God, I got wrinkles, or, oh my God, my eyes are flopping down. Now I need to bring my eyes up, or my neck has got the turkey gobble. And all of a sudden they just want to stop it. And they don't think of it as, oh, really what I'm saying is I'm going to become unworthy. I'm going to become unlovable. And because we live in a patriarchal society, until it's a different world, I see that that's sort of the fate of women, unless all of us come together and say, guess what? Like, you thought I was young and beautiful in my 20s and 30s. I'm a wise elder badass in my 50s and 60s. And now I want you to look at me differently. Is that sort of the transformation that you see could happen for women? And how would we go about making that happen?
Yes, I do see that as the transformation and the place we're headed, and really what my entire platform is built upon. I find it to be wildly insulting that my life, my identity would be based on zero evolution of my face. So what I'm saying is I'm only worthy if nothing changes. Every wonderful thing, Mindy, about my life has come through the next expression of myself, the next decade of my life. As I'm constantly in evolution, it seems counterintuitive to me that my face wouldn't be a representation, or my body wouldn't be a representation of that evolution. I have zero interest in looking how I looked at 30, now that I'm 51. And I can't wait. The 95-year-old version of me, I'm also doing this for her. I'm also walking out every wrinkle, everything that happens, every sunspot as an honor to her. Because where I stand, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's everything to step into. So while I'm running to try and freeze and around every corner, stop all signs of aging, God forbid, what I'm actually doing, and I know this is a big statement, but what I'm actually doing is I am disconnecting from any sense of soulfulness. I would go toe to toe with the spiritual community when they try to tell me, like, well, it's just another spiritual expression and this is just our 3D representation. There's nothing to me as spiritual in this modern day world to watch myself every single morning in that mirror age and do nothing about it but honor it. There is no deeper spiritual practice as far as I can see in a world that's telling me I should not dare be so free. I have so many women in my DMs saying to me, what does your husband think of your aging? I'm so surprised that you don't color your hair. I have people come into my reels, very rarely, but I have women come in and say, you look disgusting. Do something with your hair. Yeah.
Do I get DMs from women that say, women that say Botox, my 11s, Botox, so that because you look older than me, you should really Botox. I have had more people, and they're all women, and I'm like, yeah, but my ethos is to not toxify myself, so that doesn't really make sense because Botox is rat poison, and why would I put rat poison into my body? Right. And on the flip side of that, a question I have been asking, and you are the right person to ask this to, is what does wisdom look like? I'm not saying what does wisdom feel like. I'm not saying what does wisdom sound like. But if we all freeze our faces and we are in anti-aging, how do we know where the wise elders are in our community?
Full body chills right now when you said that. Like, head to toe chills. It's so interesting. My 21-year-old daughter said to me a couple of weeks ago through a really sad tone, Mom, I don't even know what a 30-year-old face looks like anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. I have no idea of what that looks like. And she was showing me a couple of trends on TikTok for girls her age. And it's a mother-daughter day. They call it like their mother-daughter day bonding, where they go get Botox together. And then they go get their manis and their petties. And I thought, this is so sad to me that we have now created a trend around mothers and daughters bonding through toxifying themselves, rather than sitting down and going for a walk or having conversation like, tell me what makes your heart beat so fast that you get so excited about. What's that one thing you can't stop talking about? Or what's that one thing you're really scared about right now? What are you worried about for your future? Where are those conversations? And I agree with you. When we are, again, I feel a massive calling in the depths of my soul and a responsibility to this next generation. Mindy, when I go out on the streets of the world, even happened last night here in California, no matter where I am, I could be in Croatia, I can be in Ireland, I can be in anywhere. Young women in particular stop me on the streets and say, thank you. Girls in their 20s, thank you for what you're doing. I don't have any role models for women who are aging. Thank you so much. I had a woman accost me in the most beautiful way recently in New York City, and she said, I showed your page to my boyfriend, and I said, just so you know, I'm going to age like this, and if you have a problem with it, we should just end this right now.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful. That is, I feel like I found a kindred sister because I have, being public on social media is, you need a thick skin. And I have had moments that I have butt up against my own, like ethos, again, like my value system. And I always go back to, I need first to make myself proud of me.
Yes.
And if I can't make my own self proud of me, then I'm really doomed. And then again, I've looked around at people and looked for other people in high positions that are actually saying things that you're saying. But one of my favorite people, our favorite authors, is Clarissa Pinkola Estes.
Yes.
And she wrote a book called The Power of the Crone. And a friend of mine said, hey, you should read it. And I was like, hey, what are you doing calling me the crone? And she said, no, crone means crown.
Yes.
And when I started to think about that, I was like, in our Western culture, we have completely shut the wise elder woman down. Yes. And we are not giving her a voice to speak. And this is why I started searching, and I was like, what does wisdom look like? I've asked so many people this question. What does wisdom look like? And nobody can give me an answer because we've all tried to manipulate the look of wisdom.
Right. You know what wisdom looks like to me?
Yeah.
When you go, especially where you live, right, with the access to like such beautiful landscapes and forestry, when I go and I stand in the middle of the redwoods, or I go and I stand in the middle of a forest somewhere, and I look at the majesty of these big, beautiful trees, I don't think, oh, it's a little too mature. If only it didn't have this bark peeling here and that branch was like that. I go there and I am so in awe of all it has withstood and how deeply rooted and firmly planted it is, regardless of the storms that have passed through, that it's still there with the test of time. And to me, that's what wisdom looks like for me to represent. I am so deeply grounded. I feel like a safe harbor for a lot of women in my life. I feel like that woman, as the tides come and go and people are frantic and they're running around so terrified in their princess energy, I'm standing there as this deeply rooted queen. It's going to be okay. And when you're done in the fear, I'll be here.
So I came up with this idea of how do we use our community and come together to support organizations that are lifting women up. I will be profiling some of these incredible nonprofits that are raising up women that really need some extra support. Give like a girl. We are more powerful together. And I'm so excited to announce this project to you.
I had something that came to my attention this year was a feminist philosopher. I keep talking about her on my podcast, Carol Gilligan. I'm trying to get her on my podcast. And she wrote back in the 80s something called In a Different Voice. And if you haven't heard about it, this is right up your alley. So what she discovered is if you ask an 11-year-old girl a question like, what do you want to eat? She will tell you exactly what she wants to eat. But if you ask her at 13, after she's gone through puberty, what she wants to eat, she will say, I don't know, what do you want to eat? And that it's in that time period when our hormones come in, because our hormones give us that sexual feeling now. I mean, we're really sexual beings, to the 15-year-old horrible comment, but is that now that's where we adapt. And I have a real feeling that, and I can only, this is a journey I'm personally going on, is going back and learning again who the 11-year-old was, who the 10-year-old was, what was her desire before her hormones came in and she became a world-class people pleaser. Because now I'm 55 or almost 55. I'm 2 years into my postmenopausal experience. The hormones are gone. And I'm looking at aging and thinking exactly what you're saying. I don't want to manipulate myself to feel worthy. That actually it's a moment for me to reconnect to whoever that authentic girl was. Who was she? And how do I go back and understand her hopes and dreams before the patriarchal culture told her to be something different? And I think aging is a form of reclamation. It's bringing back that girl into your life today before you manipulated every single part of you to please a culture that only wanted to keep you sexually attractive.
Yes. And a culture that profits off of you, whether it is selling the products through the vice of fear, right? That you need all of these things to be worthy and to be lovable. Whether they're selling to you through the modem of fear, or they're profiting by, sexualizing you in all of the ways that women are sexualized, to sell things, to move the needle in every possible industry. And I completely agree that going back to saying, hell with that, I see, when I look at all of that, I am so immovable when it comes to all of that, because I see exactly what the modem is and why they're trying to terrify. I mean, there's not an ounce of fear in me when it comes to aging, like none whatsoever. So I see all of that. I do feel sad for the women who believe in all of that messaging. But my work is exactly what you're talking about. It is a redirection. And before coming on here, I have a lot of clients via a messaging app where we do voice messages every day. And one of the biggest things I take women through is this reconnection. And I just recorded last week with my team this beautiful, we call it the inner maiden meditation, where I take them on a journey back to that 7, 8-year-old, 9, 10-year-old girl, that girl in there whose dreams, anything was possible. She had the most beautiful dreams. And as soon as she realized that the world had expectations from her, bit by bit, the walls started to close in and she lost her magnetic energy, because she now realized, like, oh, my father has this expectation, the boys at my school have this, the girls, and before you know it, she's so far removed from herself. So I have women in their mid-40s and beyond coming saying, I want to find her again. I want to reconnect with her.
Yeah. And that's the opportunity, I think, of menopause and perimenopause. I call it the neurochemical armor. The neurochemical armor is coming down. You're starting to get this reflection of who you've been and who you can be. And here we are either villainizing menopause or creaming it or patching it, which is whatever you choose to do. There's no criticism on that. But don't miss the opportunity. And in my book, when that neurochemical armor comes down, there is like, oh my God, it's like a waking up to the 11-year-old and then dealing with the traumas that have been accumulated while you were under this patriarchal